Don't let her near the cutlery. She might steal it. The room falls silent. The words slice through the air like a knife. Standing in the corner with her head slightly bowed, wearing a faded uniform and holding a silver tray, is Amara. She doesn't flinch. But her eyes say everything. The billionaire guests chuckle, unaware that the very woman they just insulted owns more than every single one of them combined. She watches quietly. But tonight, the masks will fall, because this isn't just another party. Tonight, secrets will be revealed, and one man will fall to his knees when he discovers the truth. The grand estate of Governor Charles Whitmore shimmered in marble and glass, towering over the quiet hills of Virginia like a modern-day palace. It had a private helipad, manicured lawns trimmed by silence, and a hallway so long it echoed secrets. Every morning at precisely 6:30 a.m., footsteps could be heard down that hallway, soft, worn, deliberate. They belonged to Miss Alma, a black woman in her early 60s, with a limp in her right foot and a mop bucket that squeaked with every turn. She wore a faded blue uniform and kept her gray hair tucked under a modest headscarf. To most in the Whitmore household, she was just the maid. She was invisible, spoken to with clipped words and condescending smiles. Alma had been cleaning homes since she was 15, homes that treated her like part of the wallpaper, paid in cash and dismissed with a nod. But this house was different. This house had power running through its walls, and secrets that no amount of bleach could scrub away. One morning, while scrubbing blood-red wine off the governor's imported carpet, she overheard a hushed conversation between two security aides in the study. "He's not safe. The protesters outside? They're not the real threat." The second one lowered his voice. "They think it's someone on the inside." Alma paused, not visibly, but inside her chest something stirred. Governor Whitmore had just announced new reforms, controversial reforms, and made enemies faster than headlines could print. But that wasn't Alma's business. She was hired to clean, and for 6 months that's all she had done, until that Thursday morning, when she walked into the library and saw the governor slumped over his desk, sweating, gasping, clutching his chest. The room smelled of metal, not dust, blood. His coffee cup lay sideways, a strange foam at its brim. The guards weren't around. The cameras were off. Alma rushed to his side, forgetting every warning, every "stay in your place." She touched his face, murmured a name she hadn't spoken in years, and pulled a tiny bottle from her apron pocket. It was an old remedy from her grandmother's medicine chest, something she'd never trusted enough to use. Until now. She rubbed it beneath his tongue and whispered, "Don't you die today, sir." Not like this. His pulse was fading. The ambulance was still 8 minutes away. And in that moment, the maid they all ignored became the only person standing between life and death. When the paramedics finally arrived, they found Governor Whitmore conscious, dazed, sweating, but alive. He couldn't form full sentences yet, but his heart had stabilized. They rushed him out under a flurry of flashing lights. The mansion burst into chaos. Security running up and down, aides on frantic phone calls, and local news helicopters already circling above. Yet no one, not a single person, asked Alma what she saw, what she did, or how she got to him first. She stood in the hallway, hands still shaking, watching the blood-streaked floor dry under the morning sun. "Miss Alma," one of the junior aides said, "you can return to your quarters now." Not "thank you," not "what happened," not "did you see anything?" Just a command. She nodded silently and returned to her small room behind the laundry corridor, but not before slipping the used medicine bottle back into her apron. That night, she heard whispers through the vents. It couldn't have been natural. "Something's off." And then the words that confirmed her fear. "The footage from the library is missing." The next morning, a white man in an expensive gray suit showed up with a briefcase and thin eyes. "Internal investigation," he said, flashing a badge without a name. He questioned every staff member except Alma. Not once was she called in. Not once was she acknowledged. And then came the press conference. Governor Whitmore sat up in his hospital bed, flanked by his wife and personal physician. The cameras pointed straight at his pale face. "I owe my life," he said, "to the quick response of my medical team and the grace of God." The crowd clapped. Reporters scribbled furiously. No mention of the maid, no mention of the missing footage. Alma watched it on the tiny TV in the break room, arms crossed, mouth set in a firm line. That night, someone knocked on her door. It was Claire, the head cook. "You ain't heard this from me," she whispered. "But they're changing records, rewriting logs. They don't want anyone knowing you touched that man." Alma said nothing, just stared at the mop bucket in the corner, the one she used minutes before saving a man who now acted like she didn't exist. But Alma had seen this before. Years ago, when her brother was wrongly imprisoned and the city forgot his name. When her daughter died in a hospital because they waited too long to treat just another black girl. She'd lived long enough to know how truth dies in silence. But not this time. This time, the truth had fingerprints, hers. And it had a bottle of medicine with only one person's DNA. If they thought they could erase her, they had no idea who they were dealing with. They hadn't just ignored a maid. They had just underestimated a woman with nothing left to lose, and everything to reveal. Word travels fast in places built on silence. The governor's mansion may have marble floors and gold-plated faucets, but beneath its elegance lies a fragile system built on invisibility, the kind that assumes people like Alma don't talk, don't think, don't notice. But they do. And that week they began to whisper. First it was Claire, the cook, who started leaving little notes under Alma's pillow. Saw them delete the camera files? Hall A. Then it was Letty, the gardener, who pointed out quietly that the red aloe plants outside the library window, Alma's favorites, were cut down the very next morning. Like they were erasing something. Even Greta, the old nanny who'd once kept to herself, pulled Alma aside in the laundry room and whispered, "I've worked here 30 years. Never seen the governor that pale. You saved him, didn't you?" Alma didn't answer. She didn't need to. They all knew. Every woman in the mansion who had ever been called just help. Every hand that had polished a doorknob, packed a lunch, or folded silk sheets, now looked at Alma with quiet respect. But the system was watching, too. One morning, Alma found her work schedule changed. Fewer hours, extra duties, intentionally difficult assignments. "Orders from upstairs," the butler said without looking her in the eye. The same day, her locker was searched. "Routine check," said the investigator in the gray suit. But he didn't know Alma had moved the bottle, or that Claire had made a copy of the security logs, or that Letty had taken photos of the scrubbed files before they were deleted. These women had cleaned up after power for decades. Now they were cleaning up differently, collecting truth, storing it, guarding it. And when Alma returned to her tiny room that night, she found an envelope under her pillow. Inside was a flash drive. On it, grainy footage from a hallway camera, never fully erased. A 2-second clip. It showed Alma running into the library. Before any guards. Before anyone. The timestamp was undeniable. The footage had been meant for deletion. Someone had saved it. Someone had chosen her side. She looked at the screen, at her own blurred figure disappearing into the library where life and death hung in the balance. They wanted silence. But the walls had eyes, and this time the maids were watching back. 3 days after the footage surfaced, the tone of the mansion changed. It was no longer just cold, it was calculated. Alma noticed the glances from staff turning nervous, hushed when she entered a room. Her broom closet was locked without warning. Her time card wiped clean from the system. Then came the bombshell. She was being accused of poisoning the governor. "We found traces of an unregistered compound in his bloodstream," said a cold voice on the other end of the call from Human Resources. "We have reason to believe it came from your person." The line went dead before she could respond. Minutes later, 2 uniformed officers appeared at the mansion gates. They didn't arrest her, not yet, but the message was clear. They were building a case. That night, Alma didn't cry. She went into her room, lit a single candle, and placed the bottle on her desk. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with fire. They were trying to bury her. But before they did, she'd make sure the whole world saw what they tried to hide. Meanwhile, A tremor of unrest shook the governor's office. Ethan Whitmore, the governor's son, 22, Harvard law grad, freshly returned, overheard the whispers. He was arrogant, yes, like his father, but not blind. He saw his father's color return weeks ago, heard the man cry in the hospital. Someone saved me before the guards came. He'd even seen Alma outside that library, kneeling. Something didn't add up. And Ethan had a secret. He hated the political machine his father built, one of PR lies, money first, silence always. So Ethan called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Maya, his childhood friend, now an investigative journalist with a reputation for exposing power abuse. "Maya," he said, whispering in his dorm bathroom, "I think my father's lying. I think someone's being set up." That night, Maya arrived in Virginia. No press pass, no crew, just a notebook and a digital recorder. She met Alma in secret, inside the old church near the mansion grounds. "You have proof?" she asked. Alma placed the bottle on the wooden bench. Then the flash drive. Then a small box of dried herbs. "That man was dying," she said, voice firm. "No one else came. No doctor, no aide. Just me. I gave him this. I saved his life. And now they want to destroy me for it." Maya opened her recorder. "Miss Alma," she said gently, "are you ready to tell your story?" Alma looked at her. Not as a maid. Not as a woman who'd been silenced her whole life, but as a witness, a healer, a survivor. "Let them come," she whispered. "Let them try. This time I'm not cleaning up their mess. I'm exposing it." The article dropped at 6:43 a.m. sharp. "The Maid Who Saved a Governor and Was Almost Erased." Published on a major national outlet's front page by Maya Thompson, it hit harder than a scandal. It hit like betrayal. It featured photos, blurry footage of Alma rushing into the library, screenshots of wiped security logs, testimony from other staffers, even a chemical breakdown of the homemade remedy that had stabilized the governor's breathing before paramedics arrived. The article named names, dates, timelines, and most importantly, it told the truth. Social media exploded. Her name is Alma trended within hours. She saved his life, and they tried to destroy hers. The black woman who healed and was nearly blamed for poisoning. The mansion. In chaos, security swarmed the gates. Reporters camped outside. Inside, the walls whispered differently now. Letty, Claire, Greta all gave statements to Maya, and every one of them validated Alma's story. No longer afraid. No longer silenced. But the one person who had been silent this entire time was Governor Whitmore himself. By noon, the pressure was unbearable. Every major outlet demanded a response. Protesters gathered at the front gate holding signs that read, "Listen to the help." Power hides, truth kneels and heals. At 3 p.m., the governor walked onto a makeshift podium in front of the mansion, pale. Thinner than before, but with eyes heavy as bricks. He cleared his throat. His hands trembled. "I am alive today," he began, "because someone in this home acted with courage and compassion. While I lay helpless," he paused, looked to his left. Alma stood in the crowd, not in uniform, not in shame. "I never thanked her. I never acknowledged her. And worse, I let a machine built to protect me nearly destroy her." The crowd was silent. The air cracked with tension. Governor Whitmore swallowed. "Miss Alma Washington saved my life." A beat passed. Cameras clicked. The world watched. "I lied," he confessed. "We lied to protect our image, to erase hers." Gasps echoed. Reporters scribbled. The crowd buzzed, and then he stepped down from the podium and walked straight to her, face to face, the powerful and the forgotten. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I owe you the truth." Alma didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "It took the whole world watching for you to see me. I saved your life. Now go earn it." The flashbulbs erupted. And just like that, the woman they called just the Maid became the face of a movement the governor could never control. The apology was public, but the reckoning was private. Behind the closed doors of the Capitol, a state-level investigation was launched. The headlines screamed, Governor's office covered up heroic act by staff worker. New evidence of tampered footage. False accusations and systemic erasure. And for the first time in his 3-decade career, Governor Whitmore wasn't the man giving orders. He was under oath, flanked by attorneys, grilled by the ethics committee. And while he stammered his way through answers, Alma Washington sat quietly in the front row, her worn notebook in her lap, the bottle in her purse, and every receipt printed and labeled. They called her to testify, and when she walked to that stand, no longer in uniform but in a deep blue dress stitched by her sister in Georgia, the room fell silent. "Ms. Washington," the lead investigator asked, "when did you first suspect they were trying to erase your role in the governor's recovery?" Alma looked him dead in the eyes. "The moment they called me just the maid." The room shifted. Her words, calm, deliberate, undeniable, cracked through the marble walls like thunder. She spoke about the missing footage, the suspicious scheduling changes, the HR silence, the weaponization of her invisibility, and then she held up the flash drive. "This," she said, "was my only protection. Not the state, not the system. Just women like me, quiet women who see everything and are seen by no one." Her testimony made national news. Within 48 hours, 2 staff aides resigned. The head of security was fired. The HR director disappeared from the website. And Governor Whitmore, he announced he would not be seeking re-election. No legacy, no statue. Just the fading echo of a man who almost died in silence and was saved by the very person he refused to see. But for Alma, this wasn't revenge. It was release. A week later, Maya Thompson invited her to a town hall in D.C. "Come speak," she said. "They need to hear your voice." Alma declined. "I've done my talking," she smiled. "Now it's time to do." And with the same quiet resolve she always had, Alma returned to her neighborhood, the one reporters ignored. She used the donation money pouring in through Maya's article, over $400,000, to rent an old community center. She called it the Scene Project, free workshops for domestic workers. Legal aid, storytelling clinics, therapy sessions, vision screenings. Her first student? A 17-year-old Latina girl named Elena, a part-time maid with a gift for writing and a bruised ego from a boss who never remembered her name. "You don't need them to see you," Alma told her. "Just see yourself. That's where power begins." It was a rainy Thursday when the bell rang at the Scene Project. Alma was in the back room, helping Elena and 2 other girls organize pamphlets on workers' rights. The air smelled of fresh coffee and lavender, a scent she always kept around to remind herself of what healing truly meant. The bell rang again, louder this time. Claire, now one of the project's full-time volunteers, peeked through the front window and paused. "Alma," she called softly, "it's him." There, drenched in a coat too nice for the neighborhood, stood Governor Whitmore. No cameras, no entourage. Just a man who'd built an empire on being seen, and now wished desperately to be understood. Alma didn't rush. She finished what she was doing, wiped her hands on a towel, and stepped into the front room. She opened the door. For a long moment, they said nothing. He looked thinner, older. Not from time, but from truth. "May I come in?" he asked. Alma studied him, not with bitterness, but with the eyes of someone who no longer had anything to prove. "You may wait in the lobby," she said. "We're busy today." He stepped inside, eyes scanning the humble space. The flyers in Spanish, the bookshelves labeled "By Us, For Us," the paintings of women cleaning, healing, raising children, leading protests. All faces he had never truly seen. "I read about your work," he began. "I saw you on CNN." Alma nodded. "Took you long enough?" he chuckled, a broken man's laugh. "I deserve that." He sat on the edge of a folding chair, his hands shaking. "I'm not here to ask for redemption, I don't know who I am anymore." Alma folded her arms. "Now you know how we've felt our whole lives." "I thought power meant control," he whispered. But it was fear. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of owing my life to someone like you? Alma raised her brow. "Someone like me?" He caught himself. "I mean, someone they told me didn't matter." I believed them. For the first time, his eyes watered. Not for show, not for politics, but because something inside him had truly broken open. "Tyler still talks about you," he said. "He wants to visit." Alma's expression softened. "He's a good boy. Let him grow up seeing the world for what it is, not what men like you painted it to be." He nodded. Looked down. "Can I do something? Donate? Help?" She walked over to a table and handed him a broom. "Start there. The bathrooms need cleaning." He blinked. "You're serious?" "As a miracle," she said. And he did it. Slowly, awkwardly, but sincerely. For 2 hours, the former governor cleaned toilets and mopped floors in a community center run by the woman he once tried to erase. Not for a photo, not for a press release, but because for the first time he wanted to understand what it meant to serve. A year later, no one remembered the luxury furniture inside Governor Whitmore's mansion, because the mansion itself had been sold. The city turned it into a public library, but everyone remembered the woman who once cleaned its marble floors, Alma Washington. Not because she demanded attention, but because she became the mirror that forced a nation to see what it tried to ignore. The Scene Project had grown beyond what she imagined. From a single community center in D.C., it expanded into 4 more: Baltimore, Philly, Atlanta, Detroit. Each one run by women who had once been just something. Just a maid. Just a nanny. Just the help. And now they were mentors, directors, authors, healers, architects of dignity. On the anniversary of her testimony, a public school was renamed in her honor, Alma Washington Preparatory School for Girls. The ceremony was small. She had requested no national press. "If it's real," she told Maya, "it doesn't need a spotlight. It shines on its own." Governor Whitmore came quietly, stood at the back of the crowd, hands folded, eyes glassy. He had retired from politics completely. Now he spent his time volunteering at the center twice a week, not to be forgiven, but to grow in the absence of power. That day, after the ceremony, Alma walked into the school's hallway. On the wall were framed portraits, not of politicians or celebrities, but of black women in aprons, in overalls, in scrubs. Below each, a plaque that read, "She mattered." She saved. She saw. One little girl ran up to Alma, notebook in hand. "Miss Alma," she asked shyly, "how did you know what to do when nobody believed you?" Alma knelt, brushed the girl's cheek gently, and smiled. "I didn't know, baby. I just remembered who I was. Before they told me I was invisible." The girl nodded, then added, "I want to be like you." "No," Alma said gently. "Be like you, but never let them make you small." That night, Alma sat on her porch, lavender tea in hand. The world was still full of noise, politics, power, pride. But here, under the stars, she remembered something her grandmother once said. "The world may never call your name. But if you heal one soul, child, one soul, you've done more than most kings ever will." She had healed more than one. She had healed a system, and when she finally closed her eyes to rest, the world didn't go dark. It lit up with every voice she had helped find, every life she had changed, and every heart that now dared to believe in a better, kinder world, because one black maid had refused to stay silent. She had been called many things in her life. But now, the world knew her name,